Hello there everyone, welcome to the channel if you're new, welcome back if you aren't, I'm EDJ. So now we're going to be looking at part 3 of Extra History's Genghis Khan series. So last time Temujin and Jemika were having, disputes, their friendship basically fell apart, and the big ideology around the two is that, Jemica kind of believes in the order of the aristocracy, the hierarchy, while Temujin's like anyone can rise up because he came from kind of nothing and rose up. So, overall now everyone seems to be rallying to either side of them, and yeah, I guess we'll just get to the war for the most part between who will win, right? And yeah, I don't really have much else to add other than I'm really looking forward to this. So, link down below. Without any further ado, let us watch part 3.
Tragic beginning, a daring escape, and a rise to power. The steppe has come to life with gossip. Could young upstart Temujin be the one to defy custom and unite the Mongol clans under one ruler? Rumors of Temujin's daring escape from Jamika's band traveled fast across the steppe. Respected prophets and religious leaders began to report that Temujin's ascension to power was destined by the spirits, and Temujin was 100% okay with that. He summoned his followers to participate in a council called a Kurultai, which was essentially an election. Families, lineages, and clans voted by showing up. Their presence served as an endorsement, or their absence as a vote against him. Attracting a simple majority counted as a victory. Unfortunately, the turnout was scarce. The majority of steppe lineages still supported Jamika. Temujin could work with this, though. Having now gathered all of his allies in one place, he consolidated this small but loyal group to establish himself as a minor Khan. And thus, Temujin became Temujin Khan.
Wow.
He quickly sent an envoy to Ong Khan to reassert his loyalty and seek his patron's blessing, reassuring him that this new title was not meant as a challenge. Ong Khan was fine with it. He preferred that Temujin and Jamika's ambitions stay focused against each other instead of him. With his patron's blessing secured, Temujin built up a revolutionary system of government within his tribe.
Play War Thunder now. Join millions of players across the globe in massive battles on
A Khan's court was known as an ordu, or horde, and traditionally the Khan's horde consisted exclusively of his relatives, and served as a kind of aristocracy over the rest of the tribe. Temujin, however, assigned positions of power based on loyalty and ability, without regard for familial ties. He appointed butchers.
Wow, that's pretty brave, huh? Because up to this point, we've seen just the importance of family, family ties, everything. But he's, choosing people based on character and merit, and, yeah, no nepotism, get rid of that nepotism. I'm joking, but, familial nepotism, I guess you could call it, right? But, yeah, very just, I admire that, I like the idea that he allowed people who could rise through the ranks, from any position, from even the bottom. Like, I don't know, like I said, I admire that approach, his ideology on that approach, which makes me kind of root for him.
Cooks, archers, guards, and keepers of prized herds of livestock and horses. He also created an elite regiment of bodyguards to surround his camp at all times. Jamika, meanwhile, still refused to acknowledge Temujin as anything other than an insolent upstart who needed to be put in his place. He carefully planned and bided his time, waiting for just the right moment to take Temujin down. That moment finally came a year after Temujin's Kurultai. One of Temujin's followers killed one of Jamika's distant relatives during a cattle raid, and Jamika used this as a justification to attack Temujin's camp with his vastly superior army, quickly routing Temujin's forces. Then, to prevent them from regrouping and retaliating, Jamika perpetrated a horrific show of revenge, beheading one of the captured leaders and boiling 70 captive prisoners alive.
Oh my goodness. Dude, Jamaica's wild, man. He is wild. But yeah, he finally had the pretext for war, right? Finally, like, the excuse he'd been waiting for at the cost of, you know, like, one of his own's life. And, man, they escalate, man.
Fortunately for Jamaica, this cruel show of force backfired hard, horrifying even his staunchest allies. By treating his enemies this way, he further emphasized the divisions between the old aristocratic lineages and the abused lower classes. Temujin may have lost the battle, but this moment was a turning point in terms of public support and sympathy. More families flocked to join Temujin's camp, and he slowly began to rebuild. In 1195, a 33-year-old Temujin would be handed an unexpected opportunity in the form of a foreign raid. A group called the Jurchen approached Ung Khan asking him to raise an army and attack their enemies, the Tartars. For this raid, Ung Khan enlisted Temujin's horde. Now, Temujin had much to gain from this venture, so he gathered support of his own. He approached a small clan directly to the south of his camp, the Jurkin, and offered them spoils and glory in exchange for participating in the raid. The Jurkin gave their word. They were in. Shortly before the raid, Temujin invited the Jurkin to a feast. Unfortunately, during the celebration, Temujin's half-brother Belgate spotted two Jurkin attempting to steal horses. He identified one of the thieves as a renowned wrestler named Buri, and readied himself to fight the man as an equal, thinking that they would wrestle honorably. Instead, Buri drew his sword and cut Belgate across the shoulder. A grave insult.
Wow.
When the rest of the feast heard about this, it turned into a drunken brawl. And by brawl, I mostly mean food fight, because in keeping with tradition, everybody had left their weapons behind. Needless to say, when the time came to set out on a raid against the Tartars, the Jurkin never showed up to help. As with the Kurultai, absence constituted a vote of no confidence in Temujin. Victory was swift and easy all the same, and the spoils were astounding. The Tartars had access to manufactured goods from the Chinese Empire, including silk clothes and blankets and gold and silver jewelry. Captured children wore luxuries the likes of which the ragged Mongols had never seen on anyone, let alone a child. The opulence was astounding. But more importantly, Temujin saw clearly how the powerful Jurchen had just used one border tribe to fight another, and the lesson was clear. A tribe conquered today will rise up and have to be defeated again in an endless cycle of warfare with no decisive victory or lasting peace. Temujin will remember this. With his newfound wealth, Temujin was now prepared to push into the territories of smaller neighboring tribes. When he returned home to discover that the Jurkin had raided his camp while he was away, picking his first target became very easy. Now that he was an experienced, battle-tested commander, Temujin and his mounted archers scattered the Jurkin with ease. With this victory in hand, Temujin instituted another revolutionary change in ruling style. See, in the traditional cycle of Mongol raiding and counterattack, the defeated tribe was looted and a few key prisoners were taken, but the rest of the tribe was left alone. Historically, those survivors would then regroup and strike back, or seek out larger rival clans to join. Temujin decided that this cycle was not in his best interests. After defeating the Jurkin, he summoned a Kurultai of all his followers and conducted a public trial of the aristocratic Jurkin leaders. For failing to fulfill their promise of joining him in war, and for raiding his camp in his absence, they were found guilty, and Temujin had them executed. After this, he went on to occupy the Jurkin lands and redistribute them amongst his followers. He then integrated the remaining Jurkin citizens into the households of his own clan.
Dang, that's smart. Yeah, before it seems like we just defeated you, but you basically live on to fight another day, right? It seems to be that's how, the tribe warfare operated. Might maybe take a few hostages and riches. For the most part, a defeated tribe will rise. Here, he basically destroyed them, right? And he destroyed them and then assimilated them. Yeah, that's quite the solution there, to all the issue.
Not as slaves, but as full members in good standing. He also adopted an orphaned Jurkin boy as his brother, giving him to his mother, Olun, to raise as her own son. Then, as a final show of force, Temujin summoned all of his followers, including the newly adopted Jurkin, to a feast. For the event, he also summoned Buri, the wrestler who had started that great brawl by stealing horses and cutting Belgate. Temujin ordered the two men to wrestle. Buri had never lost a match in his life, but he feared Temujin's wrath and allowed Belgate to throw him. Normally, this would mean that the match was over, but Belgate and Temujin had made their own plans. After winning, Belgate set upon the defeated Buri and broke his back. With this final merciless display...
Oh my gosh! Holy crap! Oh my goodness. Wow, that's insane. He's broken him in half! I remember when I used to watch professional wrestling when I was a kid. But wow, that's insane. Brutal, but like, yeah, Temujin is just brutal, but he's like oddly effective.
Temujin had rid himself of all the Jurkin leaders and sent a clear message to all who might oppose him. If you surrender to Temujin and remain loyal, there are great rewards to be gained. But if you betray him, there will be no mercy, and nobody, not even aristocrats, are safe. Temujin moved his base of operations into Jurkin territory, continuing to conquer and attract lesser lineages. Meanwhile, Jamaka worked to establish himself as a leader and advocate for the aristocrats, who feared the threat Temujin posed to their traditions and way of life. Then, in 1201, once he had the full support of the aristocracy, Jamaka made a play for the title of ruler of all Mongols. He summoned his own Kurultai and successfully bestowed upon himself the title of Gur-Khan, an ancient and revered title which meant universal ruler. This was a strategic choice. Jamaka chose this title not just because it was ancient and respected, but also because the last person to bear the title was Ongg Khan's uncle, who had ruled until Ongg Khan revolted and killed him. Jamaka was not just challenging Temujin here, but Ongg Khan as well. If he could win this war, he would be the supreme ruler of the Central Steppe. As Temujin's patron, Ongg Khan came out personally to lead his warriors in the campaign against their rival. The battle was as much psychological as it was physical. Shamans lined the rocky...
Yeah, I'm amazed by just how much this has become a battle of ideology, of classes, right? Of who can rise, who can't, you know, the more common folk with the aristocracy, you know, just, there's so much layers and dimensions to this conflict. And yeah, Jamaka's just picking fights with everyone. I don't know if it's wise to make two enemies at once. I guess, you know, but either way, I guess, like, yeah, the possibility of defeating both in one big, you know, more decisive conflict would basically free him to be the main guy, you know? So yeah, a lot high risk, but also high reward, I think, is the appropriate saying.
Cliffs along the battlefield, beating ritual drums to summon supporting spirits and control the weather. As they beat their drums, a massive thunderstorm gathered, which both sides attributed to the shamans supporting Temujin. This shook the resolve of many of Jamaka's warriors, and caused many to desert in fear of angering the spirits. Jamaka was forced to retreat. Ongg Khan chased after Jamaka and the main part of his army, while Temujin gave chase to the Taichut, one of the clans loyal to Jamaka, and coincidentally the clan that had abandoned him and his family decades before. They proved difficult to defeat. Both sides fought for hours, firing from horseback, from fixed positions behind rocks, or hastily assembled barricades. Toward the end of the day, a poisoned enemy arrow struck Temujin Khan's neck, knocking him unconscious. Darkness fell, and both sides made camp on the battlefield to rest until daylight. Thanks to the aid of his loyal second-in-command, Temujin recovered by the next morning. The Taichut didn't even know that Temujin had been injured, and most of them had fled in the night. Temujin sent his warriors in pursuit, and, as with the Jurkin, publicly executed their leaders and integrated the rest, taking over their lands. He also found the family who had helped him escape 30 years prior, and freed them from their servitude. Temujin had won this fight, but Jamaka escaped Ongg Khan and fled to more remote parts of the steppe to regroup and recruit new allies. Even without the Taichut, Jamaka still had many clans loyal to him. The final showdown was yet to come.
Dang, that's wild. but super interesting. Things are now escalating as this has basically become a civil war, you know. Who's gonna rule them all, right? And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. So I'm just gonna jump to the next one. Another great video. I'll see you all next time. Bye, everyone.